still anyway. Anyway, let's get started. Jaren ji, बहुत शुक्रिया आप सबका join करने का. I thought a couple of folks had asked, they wanted to get an intro regarding UX design, what it means. So I thought let's have this discussion. I'm not an absolute expert, as you might think. I know something about UX design, been teaching it for the last 3-4 years at Sheridan College. We've designed a couple of apps for ourselves. We have used the techniques that we have done. So all of these things combining into a half-hour session is a bit of a stretch, but regardless, I'll try to give it a shot and basically have a discussion with what you folks are looking for and what everybody is aspiring to do with whatever you take away from here. So I'll just go around the room first, just to know what are the folks in the room and what you're looking for. So as we go, Shahzeb, what's your thoughts?
Maybe my story is a bit strange. I come from an economics undergrad and into marketing, into then graphic design these days. And since I came to Canada, since I've been looking for jobs in the graphic design and all this kind of industry, and all I can see is just jobs for product design and UX design and UI design. I've been designing landing pages, but that's the extent of it, and I want to know more about the field and perhaps get some
For sure. For sure. We'll just try to keep the introduction short because we are on like a 30 seconds snapshot of where you are, what you're looking for, and that'll be good. Evan, you want to go next?
Yeah, hi. Consultant, always trying to learn. I think there's some good stuff here that I can learn. I've been in Canada 20 years. Let's go start looking forward to learn.
Perfect. Haseeb?
Hi, I'm a physical product manager trying to learn about digital product design and product management.
Well, then we can learn a couple of things from you then, for sure. Kamran?
For sure.
Kamran? No, Kamran.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I work in testing and business analysis roles. So this is something that I have to come across a number of times. So this is not a bad idea to have a good idea through your perspective.
Okay, cool. Nice. Sarah just dropped a message. There's some ambient noise in her background, and she works as a digital lead, so that's good. Shumail Habib, if you can just give a small introduction about yourself.
Hi, Saad and team. This is Shumail. I'm working in Rogers as a PMO, a National Program Manager. So I'm just want to understand what is the UX design. I'm not much into it and just want to know exactly what it is. And my role is totally different than this, but I just need to know the perspective of it. So thanks for sending the invite, and
Okay. Cool. We got everybody covered. I think there's one more name that I see. Ghani, you wanna quickly share what you're looking for? No? Okay, yeah. Go ahead. No, I guess not. Anyway, thank you.
I'm sorry, just wondering, are you recording the session? My wife actually wanted to attend it, so she could not for some reason. So
yeah, I am recording the session. I don't know I'll be able to share it or not, but anyway, I thought I'll record it. We'll decide afterwards, maybe certain portions of it, or because if the discussion goes into an informal discussion, then you don't want to be recording all of that. Anyway, so let me get started formally. Yeah, this is UX design. It's just please don't hold me to it because it is a very high level introduction. There are a lot of things I normally teach this course. It expands over 16 weeks, and there's 3 hours per week, and then there are assignments and a lot of other things that entail with it. Everything that we might cover at a high level today, there's a full session that you can actually have against that. But I see that there's a lot of curiosity in the room regarding what is it all about, where does it come out from, why is it important. So in the interest of answering all of those questions, we'll try to do that. So UX design, the process of creating a product, basically it's got more to do with the visual and the experience side of things than anything else. So if we have developers in the room, they almost start thinking, okay, how am I going to code this? How am I going to design the actual like how is my actual functionality going to be. This is not all what UX design is all about. It's purely, as the word goes, is user experience, and then you design that user experience. That's all what it revolves around. And in digital products, the user experience has a slightly different touch to it. And of course, in physical products, the user experience is very different as well. Most people might be familiar with the story of how Steve Jobs used to ensure that the round edges of the iPhone will create a better experience if they were at a certain angle. So we don't go into all of those things in digital. One second, let me mute folks who joined the call. So, and it is all about creating a product that will be both visually appealing and highly pleasant to interact with. I will also try to introduce some of the tools that we have used in the UX design, which are more relevant to visually explain the experience from an end-to-end perspective. Anyway, I'll come to those tools slightly later in the session. So yeah, with the 5 planes, this is one of those things in UX design that we normally deal with. I'm not going to make a deep dive into each of those 5 planes because it is, like I said, complete uh, um, topics in themselves. But at the lowest level, from where we start, is where we determine the strategy of a product or a mobile app that you are going to build. Why are you building it? Who are going to be the customers? What is the business need that you're going to address? What are the KPIs we are going to establish? At this point in time, the app or your is at a very abstract level. So you're talking about things at a very high level. Nothing has come into fruition, so to speak. As you go up in the plane, you start talking about scope. When you, for those who are familiar, who have been working in PMO or have been as business analysts. Sorry, there's a couple of things in the chat. Okay. There is no passcode. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, so you when you start talking about scope, you're talking about things like user story mapping, user stories, and those who have been familiar, who have worked in Agile, would be very familiar with all of those things. So that's the scope part of it. And as you move up into the structure, then you start talking about, okay, how is my website going to be interlinked? That's where you start building out site maps or your application maps, as they're called. As you proceed up further, then you start talking about the skeleton. The skeleton is like your lo-fi designs. Lo-fi designs basically tell at a high level how is my structure of my app going to look like. And then when you go beyond that, then you start talking about the surface. Surface is about topography, it's about visual graphics, colors, and it's a complete subject in itself as to how color design and all of those things. A lot of things that a lot of people actually start thinking about UX design that it is about UI. So it's not UI. UI is a component of UX design, you could say, but there's a lot of other things that go leading up into the final surface when it comes and is launched in the market. There's a lot of other planes as well in the background. With this, I'm sure a lot of you might already be familiar who have worked in consulting, who have worked in any kind of development process. What is the problem? You start defining the problem. Why is it important? Does it work? You ideate upon it, you prototype. And these is the small circular way it keeps on rotating around. So we will not go into all of this stuff, into too much detail about this stuff. Yeah, so in terms of the stages, if you look at this, like for example, if you're doing in your first stage, you're setting your clear goals, what are the kind of techniques that you're looking at? You're having your stakeholder interviews, you're having your design strategy, the scope of the application, the requirements that you are going to have for your application. Then you start doing your research and your competitor research. So that's where you start thinking about when you start having your interviews, focus groups, your surveys, and you start analyzing your findings. At that point, the techniques that you are using are that you're using and creating user personas, you're outlining user stories, you're mapping customer journey maps. Um, like I said, each one of these things is a complete subject in itself. Like, how do you define user personas? What's all that about? Then user stories, how do you write them? Mapping customer journey maps is also a full exercise in itself. But at a high level, it'll give you an idea what are all the things that entail in your journey in a UX design app development journey. Then you establish the structure where you talk about UI design, you build the UX wireframe, you build you build a prototype. After having done that, there is A/B testing, there's usability studies. People actually come in and they perform testing on the actual app that you have built. And the layout, one second, there's some little bit of background. I'm just going to mute that. So anyway, I'll not go into this one. Then we talk about user interviews and focus groups. You can have a panel of people discussing specific topics, questions. I'm sure all of you have gone through these things as project managers or in any job that you're doing. If there is a session that has to be conducted, either you can do it as a one-on-one interviews or focus groups. You try to understand what is the users looking for. And of course, we utilize surveys. They can be qualitative, they are quantitative in nature. You try to get a feedback on what are the features that you are likely to utilize in the app that you are building. So you have surveys. You can use Google Form for that. You can use SurveyMonkey. There are certain other tools as well that you can utilize for getting feedback on your survey. Then there's the user personas. You try to identify or create a fictitious character for the product that you are building. So you give that person a name, you put an age, location, title. You try to understand their goals and frustrations and what are the reasons why they would actually use your application in the first place. And this is more or less relevant for all the physical, even for the physical products that you build, like somebody mentioned, I believe it was Hasib. So these are all those exercises that are done in that space as well. So then we do the user stories outlining. For those who are not familiar, for each user story, for each functionality, you try to identify the user. So as a user, I want to, there's a goal to achieve to whatever the value they receive out of it. So based on this, you actually write down the user stories for the app and what all the functionality that it is going to deliver. So that's captured in the user stories part. There is another tool that we use now that's called user story mapping. I'll show that tool as well. It's Miro. And in Miro, you can actually have, for all those who are familiar with Agile, you might know themes, epics, and user stories. You can actually build that level in that user story mapping technique. Customer journey maps at a high level, they give you there's a stage, there is a certain activity that is performed at that stage, and this is not, this can be different from the ones that I've identified over here. It also depends on the app. So, but more or less at a high level, for a customer journey map for an app, these are the awareness section, and there is a consideration of the app, and there is the decision that you decide to use the app, the service in the app, and the loyalty aspect of sticking with it. So we identify customer activities that are going to be done in all those stages. What are the touch points? What is the customer experience going to be throughout this? What are the KPIs that we are internally managing in order to make sure that these things are being met? And what are the business goals that we are trying to achieve? I'm not going to go into this. Yeah, so this is probably more like hands-on stuff, kind of when you start building UX wireframes. So you actually, and there's a tool by which we accomplish this. Just going to show it to you when we are towards the end of the presentation, which is Figma, which is a very popular tool now. Google kind of uses that. There's a lot of trainings around Figma as well. Industry-wide, I think it is the most popular one right now. Anyway, I'll show you a comparison later on as well. So before even this, there's a paper design that normally you want to do, which is at a very high level explaining, okay, you just draw it out and you say, okay, this is how my structure is going to look like. And then you start building it in Figma, and then you create interactions between the different screens, which I'll also talk about how you create those interactions. So that'll come back a bit later. So yeah, like I said, you start building a prototype. So there's like your pencil designs that you do. It could be the wireframe could be done by pencil or in a tool. Then you do a prototype, and you actually do like a hi-fi design. You can almost call it like a mock-up. So there are these lo-fi design. First is the pencil lo-fi design. Then is the hi-fi lo-fi design in a tool, which is probably Figma. And then there is the hi-fi design. Then it is basically ready for product testing as well. Anyway, there are techniques, A/B testing. I don't want to go into these things. I do want to show you more hands-on stuff so that I can get you excited if this is a field that you want to consider. Usability testing, I don't want to go into that. Um, there are a lot of UI design principles that are associated. Like I said, this is a complete subject in itself. What colors do you choose? What is the 60-30-10 principle that you use for color scheming? How do you position them? What is the there are like 12 or 13 design principles that you wouldn't apply. One of them being Gestalt principle, like proximity and relevance and highlighting certain things, or containment principles, by which you make sure that things that are all relevant stay in one place. Then there is the navigation consistency design. There is one more thing that we try to be very off when we are doing the UI component of it, and that is to make sure that there is no um, cognitive overload for the users. So whenever there is a cognitive overload in the users, if there is inconsistency in your design, your users are likely to go away from go away from using your app. So you have to make sure that you don't do those things. And I see a couple of things in. Are you going to share the presentation after the call? I can do that. What's the difference between customer journey map and yeah, so there's a lot of semantics that goes around it, Amirban, and for sure, customer journey map, user journey map, call it whatever. A lot of things get thrown around in the same context, so don't worry about it. It's a customer journey, it's a journey map. That's all what it is. Take it for, and that's how I have perceived it. Yeah, so these things, yeah, I'm not gonna go into all of this. Yeah, this is the few UX design tools. Just want to show you a comparison. As you can see, Figma is a free one. You can have a collaboration. There are different people who can work on the same file. I know.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, question?
कि मैं सो रही थी.
Okay. So in terms of the 3 or 4 tools that are outlined here, the good thing with Figma is that, and when we teach it at the college, we kind of recommend them Figma because students can freely collaborate. There's like 5 or 6 students who can all work together on the same design. So that's why we kind of prefer Figma. Anyway, with that being said, I will stop the presentation part of this side because we are at 3:17 mark. And I know we have 13 minutes, so let me just quickly go over to Figma. So yeah, this is Figma. This is a tool that you use to create all the interactions. So for example, I've placed 2 frames on the screen right now. When I do this, I can actually move the whole frame. You can actually select whatever you want to. In the frame, if you select iPhone SE, if you want to have another screen, you can bring it up here. Okay, 1 second. Where did it go? Yeah. So if I need to create an interaction between my different screens, and why this is important is because a lot of time, we have an idea, and I know some folks on the call reached out. They said we have this idea about an app. We don't know what we should do or how we should go about it. So the best thing to do in that situation is that you go into Figma. Actually, before you in Figma, you start drawing out the design and how it is going to interact and how is the whole interaction going to happen. How is your customer actually going to interact with the product that you're building? Once you have those things figured out, everything else follows after, and it becomes much more easier if you were to give this to a technology team to develop, if they know exactly what they're supposed to develop. So in this thing, you can actually build an interaction. Like for example, if we were to go and say that if I click the sign in button, I should be able to go to this particular screen. If I click on the back button over here, then I should be able to come back to this particular screen. That's the most basic thing that we can show over here. If I click on prototype, you can see the interaction that I've already built out. If I have this third screen that I've added, let me add a little button here. And you can see, I wanted to showcase this, that it's so easy to interact with and so easy to do whatever you want to do with this, right? So if I were to click on this and I wanted this interaction, I could just, 1 second, I could just click it over here. And when I click on the circle button, I want it to come back to this screen. That's it. So these are all my interactions now. When I click on the sign button, it's going to bring me to this particular screen. When I click back, it'll take me here. If I click on this box over here, it'll then take me to circle in this screen. And then when I click on the circle, it'll bring me back to this. By this, you can build your full interaction from an end-to-end perspective. Some new messages. Oh, new messages. Okay, good. Okay. So let's play this out and let's see how it goes. So now it's almost like, okay, so now you have an app in your hand. So now you're ready to interact with this. So you click on the sign in button. So you came to the second screen. You click on the back button. You're now again on the first screen. Then you click on this one. It takes you to the third screen. You click on circle. You're back to your first one. Through this, you can actually help understand yourself and also be able to create a good user experience for your customers as well. And also when you're explaining this thing to a developer, you can tell them these are all the stages that the app is going to work in. This is a lo-fi design right now. You could translate this into a hi-fi design as well. I think I might not have. Is there something that I can show you? Is what I'm new design back to files. I might. Yeah. No, I don't have it here. No, I don't think I have it here. Anyway, but this is a free tool. You can go around, play with this. If anybody after the session goes back, creates an account, if you have any questions, more than glad to assist with you. This is very straightforward, very intuitive to be used. The other thing that I wanted to introduce is Miro. Miro is a very nice tool, even if for the work outside of UX design, if there are things that you do in your normal day-to-day work, like mind maps, flowcharts, or story mapping, or product roadmap, timeline, or I don't get paid by Miro. Just in there, this is not a plugin for Miro. It's just that it's a very good tool. That's why I'm bringing it up. So you can actually use this. One thing that we normally use in UX design is the user story mapping framework. So I think I already had one created. Why is it telling me that it does not have it? Recent boards should be there. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so this was an exercise that I was doing, but like I think I've kind of replaced the notes now. So, but anyway, you can actually at this level, these are almost like your somebody has a question. Okay. Okay, I can put you on mute. This is almost like the themes that you have in Agile, and then these are the epics, and right below these are all the user stories that follow below there. So you can do this mapping. This is a good exercise without going into too much detail on this, but by this you can actually prioritize what are the features or what are the user stories that you want to prioritize in a particular release, or you can also determine just by looking at it that in which high level theme does all of these user stories fall. So these are very critical things. As different product releases can be planned out, you can kind of prioritize using these kind of maps as well. Anyway, I've been talking nonstop for the last 20 minutes. I would just take a stop here and ask if there are any questions in the room that anybody has, and we can take it further from there. Any questions? Have I left you completely there? Myra will be helpful for what? Yes, yes, that is true. Yes, that is a good tool for sure. Yeah. Especially in the process management space, it can be utilized in a lot of areas. Anybody else has any questions? I hope, I don't know if I've been able to address what you were looking for, and if this is on point, or if there's any more detail that you were looking at, or maybe if we went at a very high level, but we kept it for like a half-hour session. So I wanted to just make sure that you can have a high level understanding from an end-to-end perspective as to what all entails in UX design.
So, Sat, can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
This was amazing. Thank you so much, really. And at a
Okay.
high level, from what I understand now, is that because I made my own website, I made for somebody else also, but from a content point of view, not from a developer point of view. The difference between a good website, a user-friendly website, is what you just taught versus, going without structure, without strategy, without, it gives good content, right? It makes from a content point of view and finding your way in the website, right? It's the right way of going.
This is basically like what you're saying. This is basically the interaction and making it intuitive for the user to go from the one thing to the other. We're not talking about databases at the back end, how the functionality is going to be. That's all the world of programming. This is purely from a visual experience perspective. How are you going to interact with the product? Because sometimes it is so non-intuitive. Sometimes you don't have navigation bars at the bottom. Users start having cognitive overload. The moment cognitive overload happens, you've lost your user, right? So you don't want those kind of things.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. This is very helpful.
Hi, I have a question. Javeria here. Thank you so much for taking out some time. So Figma can be used to design the user interface for phones. So can it also be used for websites?
Yeah. So 1 second here. That's a good question. You can actually, where did I go with my Figma? What have I done? Yeah, so Javeria, on that point, you can actually design, 1 second, I need to escape this. What I've done here. Anyway, yeah, so to that point, you can actually have the frame that you pick up. You can actually pick up a frame for a website. You can pick up a frame for a iPad. So there's multiple things that you can do. Actually, you know what? Let me just show you. I don't know what happened, when, but let me just show you. So for example, if I do a new design file, right? And in my frame over here, you look at all these options. I have iPhone 14 Pro Plus, whatever. I can have tablets, I can have desktops. So I can have a presentation, or I can even have paper, social media, anything. So you can basically do it for, I normally stick with phones because in my course that I teach, I just do phone mobile app. But you can use it for desktop as well. MacBook, and then wireframes. You can also pick wireframes. All that can be done.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No worries. Any other questions anybody has?
Yeah, I have a question. So I'm pretty familiar with the concepts that you've gone over today, and Figma as a tool. I've been using it for making landing pages and social media posts and whatnot. My main concern, and the reason for me being here was to figure out how to navigate a career in UX design. So if you could go over that, what kind of certifications should one get, and
So there is a good certification from Google, which is the Google UX design. I think it is actually called. There's like 6 or 7 courses. It takes about 6 to 7 months. I've seen some good reviews about it. There's a mixed review in the market regarding that. But since they have a certain methodology that they follow, and then once you have done that and you can reflect it on your LinkedIn profile, it can be useful for your potential employer to understand that, okay, you've got all the skills. So that is one of those certifications. I don't know, I have not come across a more industry-wide accepted certification on UX design.
And what would you say is the credibility of the certifications from the colleges here? Like Centennial has a program, and George Brown and Sheridan, as you're teaching.
In my the program that we have, this is the course that we have. It's actually a part of a diploma. 2 years diploma is one specific course on UX design. The other things are covered in all the other aspects as well. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, George Brown probably has a more dedicated UX design certificate, I would imagine, because I don't think you need a full degree on this, so to speak. It is a more of a complement to your existing skill set. So certificate is basically where you are looking for. But in terms of the industry-wide, except more widely universally accepted, I think Google UX design one is a more relevant one. But we can make a more hard deep dive into that for sure. It is 3:30. I had mentioned, just to be in the interest of
Last
time.
question.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So when we are talking to a team of developers, which file do we share with them when we are using Figma?
No, so what you can do is that you can just share the Figma link. So normally there's a share and a Figma link that you can share. You can copy this link and you can share with them, and they should be okay to go ahead. So you can copy this link, share it with them. My students, how they share with me is that they copy this link to me and I can go in there, I can play it, and then I can interact with that. But if you're having a session with your developers, the best thing could probably be to have a Zoom session or a workshop or a Google session, and then just kind of walk them through that. And that'll be a more better approach in doing this. That's how we do it with our
Okay,
developers.
sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks. It is 3:30. Just in the interest of time for everyone, thank you so much for being here. If there are questions, please let me know. You know how to reach me. That's how you reached here. So you're good. And thank you. We'll just stop the recording here if I can find out where I need to stop the recording
Thank you,
from
Saad.
now. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye. Stop sharing and